I've been asking people this week, what do you think joy is? What do you think of when you think of joy? I asked my Facebook friends. I have great Facebook friends. You've heard me say this over and over and over. Well, Facebook is often criticized because apparently some people just brag on there and make everybody else feel miserable, but not my friends. No.
I've seen some of your friends.
That's right. Some of you are my Facebook friends. Yeah, so many of them have gone through so much suffering and pain, and they write on there and ask for prayer. And then all these responses of people praying for them. And in fact, they were praying for me back when I was hurting, which I'm not anymore, thank God. So this week I asked them what they thought joy was, and a few of them answered. Dale, he's a comedian. He said, joy is seeing a picture of your brother-in-law on a milk carton. Oh no, that's right. Maybe some of you know Ernest. He says, joy would be a level of comfort and happiness that leaves a person feeling content and grateful. Kind of reflected what you folks said. Kurt, he's a pastor friend that we've known for years and years. He's experienced a great deal of emotional suffering. When we first met him, he was really hurting. He'd gotten himself totally burned out in a church someplace, and he came to our church in Florida just to recoup, and you could see it was hard for him. But now he's suffering from acute jaw pain. And this is what he said. I have seen it, though at times I feel I have to fight for it. Focusing on the gospel and remembering just how much the Lord has done for me have helped me remain more joyful than not, I think. The comfort of so many others in my life helps with this as well. It's a curious mix. Like 2 Corinthians 6:10, sorrowful yet always rejoicing. Marcia, joy is an internal, deep-seated assurance that one is known, loved, and secure regardless of external circumstances. Suze, so she just suffers emotionally, and she said, joy is a well. A well is dug deep. I'm a 40-year-old Christian with all this pain. There's joy there. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart, she wrote. Way down. My well is deep. That's why this sermon is. How deep is your well? So, I'm asking what joy is because of our verse today. John 15, this is one verse that means so much to me. John 15:11. I've spoken these things to you so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. What did Jesus mean? I mean, what did he say would bring him joy? I don't see any joy in the story we've been looking at, which is the upper room. Jesus had kept warning his disciples, over and over and over, that he'd be handed over to the chief priest, he'd be killed, and then he would rise from the dead. They didn't hear the rise from the dead part. They had no idea what that meant. They did hear the kill part. He repeated this many times. All it did is make them afraid. So Jesus clinched his fate by riding into Jerusalem like an ancient Hebrew king, and he set the whole city ablaze with anticipation. That could not be ignored. Then he laid into the money changers in the temple and threw them all out of there, calling them a den of robbers. That could not be ignored. Then he kept coming back to teach right there in the temple, openly defying the religious authorities, which I found out is not just religious. They were really given the authority to rule in many things in Israel. Openly defied him, condemned him to hell, and told him that God was going to rip down his own temple. That couldn't be ignored. Then each night, he disappeared into the darkness where they couldn't find him, even though they were trying to kill him. That's what's going on. And so now Passover has come, and he sent a couple of disciples. And I was reading this in Matthew, and Matthew emphasizes how secretive this whole thing was, and kind of skull and dagger almost. They had to secretly prepare the meal in a house with a secluded upper room. They met privately with his best friends there, and the whole atmosphere is filled with sorrow. But ironically, they all thought Jesus was going to now set up his kingdom, and so they were all ready with their swords. So this whole sense is no joy in this sense at all. But Jesus starts talking about love. I have spoken these things to you that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. He says this in this atmosphere. The disciples must have looked at each other like, what? Why is he talking about joy now? At a time like this? Joy? What is that? We need to understand this too. I don't think we really get it. It's fundamental to our life with God. It's fundamental to our relationship. We talked about joy in his presence. What is it? So I went through the Bible to see where it's mentioned in the Bible, and it's mentioned a lot. In the Old Testament, it's 88 times. In the New Testament, it's 57 times. Seems to me, as I was looking through all this, all your comments and what I read in the Bible, that there seems to be three kinds of joyful experiences. One is a delightful surprise. I'm sure you've walked out of a building and saw an incredible sunset covering the whole sky. We've seen that. I used to work in Office Max, and I'd go out into the parking lot and whoa, the whole sky would be full of sunset. That kind of joy is a sudden awe at beauty beyond what we're used to experiencing. It's delight of the eye. The second kind of joy I see is our sense of wonder at the deep harmony of creation. Like Proverbs 15:23, a man takes joy in giving an answer, a timely word. How good that is. Or like we feel joy, like Jay said, when a plan comes together. Or a crop yields abundantly. It's like Psalm 65:10-13. It says, you soften the earth with showers and bless its growth, soaking its furrows and leveling its ridges. You crown the year with your goodness. Your ways overflow with plenty. The wilderness pastures overflow, and the hills are robed with joy. I love that image. Hills robed with joy. Pastures are clothed like with flocks. So there's sheep all over those hills covered with joy. The valleys are covered with grain. They shout with triumph. Indeed, they sing. We've seen that here, I think, when you go out in the countryside. Again, this second kind of joy is like learning how things interrelate. And this happened to me this week as something in science and mathematics. There's joy in seeing amazing continuity of design in the whole universe. I just watched a video. It's about the golden, again, it was on Facebook, a friend posted it. Maybe Jack, he's always posting interesting things. This was a video on the golden ratio. The golden ratio is 1 to 1.618, and when you graph it out, it ends up with this curve like this. And you see this curve, this ratio, all over the place, from DNA, which is up in the corner, all the way to the spiral arms of the galaxy, which is down in the other corner. It's just mind-bogglingly amazing that you see this same ratio over and over and over. And it's why I like to paint on canvases that are 2 feet by 3 feet, because that's that golden ratio. It's an organizing structure of the universe, and we see it everywhere. So the second kind of joy is what I call the delight of the mind. Then I see a third kind of joy. This kind of joy isn't delightful. It's deeper down in the soul. I think this is what Suze Remus was talking about. This is a kind of joy that's the bottom of a deep well. And what do we find at the bottom of that well? A refreshment of heart is down there. The presence of God is down there in that deep well. Joy is the presence of God, and like the ratio, we find it everywhere. Although this deep joy is so universal, you just can't describe it. I thought when I was doing this sermon, I said, I can't just talk. It defies simple explanation. And when you try to describe love, it kind of goes away. It's like that. It needs expression in poetry and music and art. It's like Psalm 30:4-12. Sing to Yahweh, you his faithful ones, and praise his holy name, for his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor a lifetime. Weeping may spend the night, but there is joy in the morning. When I was secure, I said, I will never be shaken. Lord, when you showed your favor, you made me stand like a strong mountain. But when you hid your face, I was terrified. Lord, I called to you. I sought your favor from my Lord. What gain is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your truth? Lord, listen and be gracious to me. Lord, be my helper. You turned my lament into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness, so that I can sing to you and not be silent. Lord my God, I will praise you forever. This joy is in music. I listened to a whole bunch of different kinds of music today this week, and I had tears running down my face. I discovered that's what makes me cry, is a sense of joy, and you don't know how to express it. I'm me, so I cry. And I also paint, and here's a painting. Nearly all my most successful paintings have this quality. This is a sunrise seen through the reflected ripples of black trees in a pond, and those red streaks are supposed to be pain. Here's a painting I made to remember Joanne's mom. The moon is superimposed on a shelf she had arranged in her house. Now, people who thrive with disabilities also demonstrate a kind of joy. Here's a video we made for a company that Joanne works for. It's not religious, but you can hear the deep joy in their lives.
Complete spinal cord injury, so no feeling going down to my legs and no messages going up to my brain. When I had my accident, I fell out of this tree, so I was on the ground in the woods for over 20 hours. I had some bleeding in my brain. They weren't even sure if I was going to remember, how to speak English or what my name was or who my family members were. I woke up 3 weeks after my accident in the hospital, and so I'm lucky to be here today, but it was definitely not an easy ride after the day that I fell. Hit a pretty dark place, was super depressed, didn't think that I could do much, and on top of that I had lost all my jobs because they were all, manual labor. The only one they allowed me to stay on was at the Science Museum working in the summer camps, so I'm really appreciative of that. But I lost all my jobs, I lost my home, I lost my car, I lost my girl, I lost everything, and I ended up moving back in with my parents. One of the biggest downfalls was losing independence. I'm able to figure out who I am and what I want to continue to do with my life, and found that spark. And a huge part of gaining back my independence was having accessible space come in and find me an all-accessible home where I can have a place for my son to hang out and not have my parents over my shoulders 24/7. I can actually invite girls over to my place, without having to say, hey, you want to meet my mom, right away.
21 and a half years ago, a man I was living with beat me till I was legally dead. And they found me in the back seat of my Nissan in a coma. I was comatose for 5.5 weeks. So the fact that I'm alive is a miracle. The fact that I can talk or do anything else is... And I think the reason that I recovered as well as I did is because I had a very loving parents. My father's passed away since, but my mother has spent... I mean, when I was in intensive care, she was there with me with her hand on my hand saying, "Wake up, honey, I'm right here, I love you." I mostly made my way back from strong love from family and friends because, there are times when I just got so frustrated and I didn't know what to do. And I have, like a support group of people that I can call and say, I got this going on and it's driving me crazy. What should I do? If I weren't living here, if I hadn't gotten accepted here, I was on the waiting list here for 2 years and 3 months. And if I hadn't gotten accepted here, I don't know where I would be.
That doctors told my mom and dad when I was a little itty bitty child is 12 years old, and I'm 31 now. And that doctors say is because I was a very motivated, active child. And the one thing that bothers me the most is that I need to have somebody help me for basically almost everything off and on throughout the day. As a child, I put that down, I let that drag me down, but I've learned and I live life to its fullest potential now, and who knows, I may move into my own house someday, I don't know.
When he was little, it was easy, but as he grew and got older, it was a bigger task. Okay, it got so that I couldn't take care of him anymore. So I had PCAs come in and help, but we got so we couldn't get along because of his needs. I couldn't give him what he needed. Since he got his apartment 24/7, it was a dream. Honestly, I thought he wouldn't get it because of his independence. And it's like, lucky you, Mike. Good for you. Makes me so happy. Yeah.
Things will work out in the end, especially if you have faith, but you can't do it all on your own. When you get the help that can help you become who you are, that's truly a blessing. So I feel very, very blessed today. Yep, so happy to be here. This is To Be So Rowan, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.
In the rainfall, the rainbow shines, and my saving grace forever lies with me and the people and all the things around, like the air in the trees, the flowers in the ground. I am safe, I am here, and I won't disappear, but I'll stay forevermore in your heart. Unlock the door. I'm at your place.
Those people went through hell. They needed friends to help for the rest of their lives. They needed saviors. When life seems horrible and insurmountably painful, this is one of my favorite artists. She was writing did these art pieces as an expression of a peasant revolt that happened where she lived. And her work has such pain in it. We just cry out, there's no excuse for this. The world screams out for a savior when these things happen. We see it on the news. What is joy? Joy is knowing there is a savior. Jesus told his disciples that he is our Savior, and our Savior commands that we love one another. because love is our only hope. And joy is founded on love and on hope. Hope is founded on the love of God. And even when we walk through the darkest forest, we know God's love shines through right there, just ahead. So now Jesus tells his disciples that his words are going to make their joy complete. Suffering is temporary. Joy is permanent and will be complete. That's what he's telling them there in the upper room. At this time, your suffering will be temporary, but your joy will be complete. We find complete joy in the presence of God. How? By Easter morning. Joy is made complete in the resurrection. And why is that? Because we're going to be resurrected too. We're not just ghosts floating around. We're going to be in a new heaven and a new earth. This is joy completed, and we get a sense of that in the presence of God. We will then live continuously in the presence of God with great joy. At the bottom of the deep well is a bright light of the new heaven and the new earth. So how deep is your well? Does it reach all the way down to Jesus, your Savior, who loved you and gave his life for you? He promised, I will never leave you or forsake you, not even in the deepest well. My friend Heidi wrote that she was celebrating with her friend who found Jesus this morning after struggling through the darkest night. You can find Jesus too right now. He's there. Just call to him.